Once you've referenced the ng-route module in your application, you can use an object within it that's called route provider to actually configure routes and associate a controller with a view. And that's what we're going to look at here. So as a quick review, as you define a module, you can reference the ng-route module as well. And it kind of acts as a dependency that you're saying you're needing in your AngularJS application. Now, of course, as shown earlier, you are going to have to load the script for ng-route as well. Now, once you have your module created and ng-route referenced, you can then call module.config. So app here represents our module, and we can inject in a route provider. Now, the route provider will be injected automatically, meaning that AngularJS will create that instance just like the scope we've looked at before. And then inside of our config function, we can come in and we can configure different routes, which then allows us to associate a controller with a view. And now we can build a SPA where we can actually load different views in an application and specifically into a shell page. So once you've called the config function and then provided the route provider, we can then use it to configure a route, and we're going to give it kind of three things. Number one, we're going to give it a path. Number two, we're going to give it a view. And number three, we're going to give it the controller that's the brain for that view. So it looks like this. We can say route provider.when, and then the first parameter here is going to represent our path. Now in this case, you can see it's just the root, and you'll see in a moment we can actually add other names here and values if you'd like. And then you give it an object literal. Now there's other things you can pass here, but to get started, the two main things to know about are to give it the name of the controller that was configured and added into our module. We saw how to do that earlier. And the path to the view that you actually want to load and kind of marry to this controller. So now, when they go to the home page, the customers.html view is going to be loaded, and the brain behind it all is going to be customers controller. Now we could add another one. And so we're going to kind of chain the wins here. And we're going to say when we go to /orders, then we'd like to load orders controller and the orders.html. And then finally, what if it doesn't match up with any of those? Well, we can have an otherwise that says redirect back to the root, which will go back up into here. And that would load our default, which is our customers.html. So it's actually pretty easy to configure routes. The trick again is first you have to reference the ng-route module. Once that's referenced though, you can take the module, call config, and then the route provider will be injected in. Then we can use it to actually configure the path and then associate a controller with a view using these different properties here. Now you can also define parameters in a route, and specifically we call these route parameters, kind of an obvious name. What this allows us to do is now as we work with a given route, we can actually pass a value, for instance, a customer ID. Maybe we want to edit a customer. Well, if we're going to do that, we probably need to know the ID of the customer to edit. So what this allows us to do is define a template for the base path, and then following that, edit customer you can see here will be the customer ID. So you simply put a colon and then the name for the route parameter. Now, when I first saw this, I said, okay, that's pretty cool. I could see why I would need that, but how do I actually get to that value, such as the 254 down here? Well, that can be done using a route params object. Now we're going to jump back to a controller, and let's say that we have this customer edit controller that I just showed on the last screen. Well, if I want to get to the parameter, which was defined earlier, I can simply inject in the route params. And then from route params, we can call directly into the particular property or parameter that we want to access and get to. So in this case, we're going to grab the customer ID off of the route. That would be the 254 that you saw. And then we're going to assign that to the scope's customer ID because maybe we're going to bind that into the view. So the process of actually configuring routes involves referencing ng-route, calling config, getting to the route provider, and then using the when to configure one or more routes. Once you've configured a route, if it has route parameters, then we can access that using the route params object as you see right here. So let's jump into a demonstration and I'll show you how we can put all this together in the application we've been building.